Hey guys, how you doing? I got a great guest today. He's a world-renowned drummer. He is Felipe Torres. How you doing, Felipe?
Doing great.
Now,
Thanks for having
you are
me.
coming to be live from your home studio there. Is that what we got in the background there?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of drum sets and everything you got back there? Guitars, all kinds of stuff?
Yeah, like way too many. Like, everybody's like, "How do you have so much stuff?" I'm like, "Well, because I don't do anything else. That's it, just music." And I inherit stuff, you know.
Okay.
Once you start playing drums, everyone wants to come over to your house because it's a lot less moving around and whatnot. And
Right.
then after years, people just start to leave stuff. And I have like a policy after 2 years, it's mine now.
Right. Yeah,
You can
exactly.
have it back whenever you want, but I'm
But it
just
stays
going
here.
to consider it my thing that I'm keeping for you, but it lives here now.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I have, I don't know, 8 or 9 drum sets. 3 are here, but the
Oh,
rest are in the garage for different touring situations.
uh-huh.
And then I think I'm up to like I want to say 15 guitars, including the basses. But
Wow.
it's a lot, and amps and PAs. But yeah, I inherit stuff, or I like to fix things. So sometimes I get stuff and I fix it.
That's
And
cool.
and I also have I wouldn't call it a bad habit, but a relatively I've realized it more recently. I tend to give stuff away
Okay.
because I'll give it to someone and say, "Listen, I haven't used this snare drum in a year. You have no metal snare drum. Here you go. Just give it back to me whenever." And I will completely forget that that person has it. But whenever I finally run into them, I go, "Oh, you have that drum," and they're like, "Yeah, it's great, great." Then keep it like
Yeah.
that,
So,
because
so
I've
after two
inherited a
years,
lot of things through people
right.
kind of doing the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I just like to not have any of my gear not being played. So
I gotcha. So
yeah,
after 2 years of them having it, it becomes theirs. You just
it
get to
becomes
borrow
theirs, right?
it.
Sometimes I
Now,
remember to take a picture on my phone with them holding the thing, so that
like,
when
oh
they come,
yeah,
they go, "Oh yeah, you're that guy with that microphone." And that, no,
right.
I just give stuff because really a lot of the things I got through different friends, or I inherited, or I
Right,
traded, or I had an
right,
endorsement. So I would end up accumulating equipment, and I teach a lot now, private lessons. So
right.
I'm just constantly like, I know how I'll get away with buying a new pedal. I'll give one of my old pedals to a student who has no pedal, so it kind of
It's an addiction.
always rolling.
It's a circle, man. It's like
Yeah,
you
exactly.
keep
Yeah,
getting new stuff.
yeah. I feel like people have been very generous to me, so I try to kind of follow suit.
Exactly. Now talk about how you give lessons. I was looking stuff up. You actually have a blog and you do online lessons as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been doing that for a long time. I started I've been teaching a long time, but I started doing Skype
Right.
lessons when
Mhm.
Skype was a thing
Right.
at least 15 years ago, I think.
Hmm.
I started that with the occasional student, and it would sometimes work out. Like if I was in Europe and they were like going to take like a 7 o'clock lesson there here
Right.
in New York area, that would mean it was like midnight over there, so I could do it like after my gig.
Right. Right.
Um, but that always was just few and far between. And then 2 years ago, when everything basically became remote, I started teaching the majority of my students online. And I get these books, right? These like
Uh-huh.
composition books. They have um 100 pages. That's 200 sheets. There's like 200 lessons a book.
Wow.
Yeah. Since the first one was April 2020, and I just started the sixth book. So
Wow. There you go.
when I have my teacher friends that were like, "Oh no, I don't know if I can do this," I said, "You got to do it because kids are really resilient." See, I got them all colored. I'm really proud of
Nah.
it.
Woo!
And
Color
yeah,
coordinated and everything.
right. 'Cause the kids were really cool about it. Like they could go to school online. Why not take lessons online? It's their own
Right.
time, and they can do guitar for a little bit. They liked it, and I
Right.
just would video thing. It just worked out, and that's why
Mhm.
it just kind of grew. And I'm just doing that so much now because it's more consistent. It keeps me home.
Right.
I get to see my kids all the time.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, because they're little. They're 8 and 10.
Oh yeah, you got little
Yeah,
ones. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't get back.
Right. Oh yeah.
When I was
Mhm.
touring more heavily, that was just always like the trade-off. I
Right.
love being out playing,
Mhm.
but I really love being home with them
Right.
and my wife. So
Yep.
when the teaching became more heavy, it was like, you know what, this is great. I have a little army of rockers in town. A lot of the parents are especially the dads, they're really hitting them hard with like the really good classic rock stuff, which
Right.
I love getting to teach because that's what I learned music from, and you know, it's always guitar and drum driven. So I play
Right.
those, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I assume you play
run
guitar
around.
too, with all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guitars
yeah.
in the background. So yeah.
Yeah, so I run around like in one day I might teach like 6 or 8 lessons, and I never played the same instrument 2 times in a row.
Wow.
So it's just like running around. So somebody's like, which is your rig? That whole wall.
Right. All of those over there are
All of
mine.
those. Down to even the computer. You know, the recording setup. I do the Zoom thing still sometimes with some kids. So it's cool, man. I think it's a brave new world when it comes to education and reaching out to things. And yeah, there's you know, there's dangers in like app addiction.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I really dig that kids can just go, oh, I can look that up now.
Right.
You know, I used to have to go to like the library or just trust somebody that that's the information. So it's all readily available. So yeah. So that's what I don't know about you. I do that in my spare time. I just constantly am trying to learn something new.
Yeah.
I'm doing the dishes. Oh, let me find out how to plant these flowers. I don't know what I'm doing. I just planted them yesterday. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm looking at, I just look up stuff, or maybe something like a few new guitar scales or a product review. It's just, I'm always trying to, I tell my kids this all the time, that you should always be learning something, fixing something, or creating something, or cleaning something.
The cleaning part, yes.
You know, cleaning, creating, and learning, you know, are like the things to do. If we do that all the time, then you know, I feel like we get the most out of the day.
Right. You're always constantly trying to better yourself too. I mean, that's
Right.
educating yourself, learning new stuff. That's always a good thing. You can never learn new stuff. You never know everything, you know?
Right,
You know,
right.
like I will never say I know everything. I'm always willing to learn something. So
Cool. So what about you? You play some music?
I did back in middle school, or no, elementary school. I played the saxophone.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I could never read notes. I was never very good at reading music or any of that stuff. So it kind of went by the wayside when I hit middle school and stuff. But yeah, my dad is a more talented one. He played bass guitar. He played the clarinet and he played the saxophone in high school. But we got older. He was in bands playing the bass guitar.
Smart man. See, out of I think I have around 60 students these days. It's pretty much split down guitar and drums.
Right.
There's one bass player.
I've
been trying to convert some of my guitar players by telling them this is a bass. It comes with a band. Everyone needs a bass player. Don't believe me? Paul McCartney. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how he got the gig, which I've always questioned though. They were like, oh man, we need a bass player. And like 2 of them stepped back and Paul's still standing there. But they had a bass, right, from their old buddy Stu. Who'd been in the band. They all played guitar. He played the bass.
Right.
And that guy leaves the band. Like, oh, we need a bass player. Then they end up giving the lefty the bass. It just, I don't think that's how it went down. I think he wanted to play the bass because he played piano. And it was like, oh, this is the left-hand stuff.
Right.
And then they got the violin bass because it was basically symmetrical.
Right.
And you could flip it much easier. I mean, I think they had to flip probably the bridge and, you know, little pieces, but the body wasn't upside down.
Right.
Unlike, you know, like how Jimi Hendrix, like even down to, you ever look at Jimi Hendrix's guitar, because it was upside down, he even had to screw in like the bolt that puts the strap, or otherwise it would have been all.
Yeah, because everything's opposite.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I really get a kick out of when like somebody has a righty version of that. They'll get a lefty and flip it upside down to make it a righty, just so it's like it's almost like the limitations he had in the eyes of a more standardized guitar player was just almost like part of is just as much amazing as his actual ability, that he also did it, and he did it so unconventionally.
Right.
You know, so I think sometimes people chase just the unconventional part, and you know, then we have to remember there was only one Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
But there's also only one of each of us. So
that's true.
So, you know, there's an even playing ground. I've always thought that with music, it's something you can learn, or at least when I finally learned, it's something you can learn. I didn't grow up playing until I didn't play anything until I was like 13, when my brother started playing the trumpet, and he's younger, and he came home with the trumpet. And oh man, you learned this at school? Well, I only wanted to play drums because I thought, oh, they're cool. They're in the back.
Right. They're loud.
Yeah, and then after like couple of months of taking lessons and stuff, I talked my friends into getting guitars. and we put together a band. We played the talent show, and they said, okay, we did that. Now we can go back to playing like basketball. I said, no, I think this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with this. Yeah.
and very quickly I asked, my brother, who then wanted to learn guitar with the kids, hey, can you show me a couple of chords so I could see what they look like backwards? So when I played, I could cheat and know where I was in the song, because I was so loud I couldn't hear what they were playing. So they saw what their finger position was.
I got you. That's smart.
Okay, it looks like old man fingers, and like bear claw or whatever, like and so after a little while I went, well, I guess if I learn this, I can learn that.
Right.
And then one of my biggest influences is Dave Grohl.
Yes.
Who
Foo Fighters, Nirvana. Oh,
right,
yes.
right, exactly. So when I saw the Nirvana stuff, I was like, oh man, drums are awesome. And then he started Foo Fighters. I went, oh, wait a minute, he plays guitar now too?
That tripped me out, dude. First time I saw him at Foo Fighters, I'm like, wait a second. That's the drummer from Nirvana. I'm like, I didn't know he could be a lead singer. But I mean, that's the same thing with oh my goodness, why is he slipped my mind now? The drummer for the Eagles, who is
Don Henley. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Don Henley. Yes.
Don Henley's awesome. As far as singing drummers,
to me, that is hard to do. To keep the beats and the song and lyrics in your head, I think that would be
you'd think. And strangely, I used to take like some singing lessons so I could sing backup, because when I played in Davy Jones's band, and others after that, but when I first started singing backup, it was with Jones, because I sang it on the same register as tenor. So he just wanted me to double him as long as, and everyone else would be singing in choruses and such. So, a lot of times it'd just be a lot of voices, but the coordination wasn't so tricky, because I'd already been studying with a couple of great singing drummers who, gave me some like pointers on the rhythm part and the breathing part. And that's really what it is. It's really a breathing. Like, you can learn to have pitch control. That's its own thing, but rhythmically, especially when you're singing backup, you don't really have to sing out. You don't have to sing all the syllables. You even don't want to sing too much.
Plus you're sitting. That to me, that makes it harder too. Sorry to interrupt you there, but
but you're right. That you'd think that would be an obstacle. But the first time I took an actual voice lesson, my teacher said, well, are you going to be singing standing or sitting? I said, actually, I sit when I'm playing drums. So we just always did it that way. And it improved my playing, because I had to sit in a way that allowed me to breathe better.
Okay.
So breathing is, it's a funny thing that we forget to do when we try to do something physical, right? So I find myself saying that to many of my drummers, just count in rhythm and breathe in rhythm. And if at some point you want to sing, it'll be like another extension of your expression. It's another limb in a way. Right. And there are a lot of great singing drummers. I mean, Ringo's one of my heroes.
Right. My son's about to go see him in Pittsburgh here in a couple months.
Oh, great, man.
Yeah.
My wife and I are going to see McCartney.
Oh, yeah. Actually, my son is going to, where's McCartney at?
He's playing the MetLife.
Oh, he's in New York. Well, my son's going to see him. Is that one in Pittsburgh? I know he's got McCartney and he's got Ringo. One's in Pittsburgh and where's the other one at? I can't remember. But he's going to see both of them here.
He's going all out.
That's great. He's the last couple of years he's really gotten into the Beatles. He likes the Beatles a lot. So that's, which I mean, I don't dislike the Beatles. I like the Beatles. I'm more of, I would say, like a Led Zeppelin fan. I mean, I love that's one of my favorite rock bands is Led Zeppelin. The beats.
Me too. I have this strange duality in my influence that, just to add exactly, the Beatles, I think, wrote the greatest songs.
Right.
And put out the best records, and and Led Zeppelin are just the best players.
Yes.
Like John Bonham's my favorite rock drummer, huge open sound. Ringo's my favorite studio drummer, really tight studio sound, wonderful swing. Right. Lennon, I think, wrote some of the best songs, but Jimmy Page is my favorite guitar player. So just some days I'm just like, I'm just so glad that those English guys wanted to play like American black guys. that was the thing that they wanted. They wanted to play the Southern. Or like it was to some degree an ancestral style of blues that was coming through a lot of the slavery time, and then became this. It's funny too, and I'll try not to make this huge. If you look at the music, the way that it's shifted over the last, say, 150 years, even what we know now as rock.
Yeah,
so much of it stems from two distinguishably different places, and yet they meet at rock. which
Okay.
is like traditional hymns and R&B, rhythm and blues things that came up from slavery and
Right.
from
Right.
southern, plantation plants where
Mhm.
people that all they could do was sing,
Right.
and so
Right.
they had these hymns and which basically created blues.
Right.
And then we had country, which
Mhm.
came from folk music,
Right.
and they kind of crisscrossed somewhere.
Mhm.
And they created what is now what we consider American music. And the great irony is that the music got along before a lot of the cultures did, like by
That's
a
true.
couple of centuries.
Right. Yep.
And you hear
Mhm.
blues, you know what it is. You hear country, you know what it is. But if
Mhm.
you put the ingredients, they're the same stuff,
Right.
the
Mhm.
same chord progressions, the same feels, the same lyrics, the same styles in a lot of
Right.
ways. And of course, they then grew into what we know now. I mean, blues became rock on like what you could consider like the compositional side, people writing songs.
Right.
And then on the jazz tip, they went improvisational.
Mhm.
And those are really, I think, the only two real styles of music. There's composed music and improvisational music,
Right.
because it's kind of like food. There's either hot food or cold food.
Right.
Every
Exactly.
other ingredient can be
Right.
separate, but those are the general. Something's going to fall in one of those two things or a combination, and
Right.
music's that way too. And amazingly, when you look at like those British rock bands,
Mhm.
they were trying to do this American style that they heard,
Right.
and then they did it in their own way, and they sold it back.
Right.
So it was like
Right.
international, just right over the water, like within
Exactly.
10 years or something.
Now,
And I still get a kick out of that.
One thing about John Bonham, and people have said that he could be considered one of the greatest drummers ever, and it was and his beats and his rhythms that he would do with Led Zeppelin is, and like I said, I'm speaking from stuff I've heard because I can't play the drums, but I've heard that it's really hard to try to mimic what he's doing, and some of the Led Zeppelin songs are kind of the hardest ones to drum.
Yeah, the thing with, I mean, I guess to totally agree with you. The challenge in trying to cop someone's vibe
Mhm.
when their vibe is it's based on such improvisation
Mhm.
is much more difficult than, say, if you were going to recreate someone's composition. So, for example, anyone can play the beat
Right.
from When the Levee Breaks, but nobody else is going to play the rest of When the Levee Breaks like how Bonham did, because Bonham never played it the same way. So when people are like, "Oh,
Right.
I got to learn
Yeah.
this note for note," if it's classical music, then that's great. That's a tradition. That's kind of the vibe.
Mhm.
But if someone wants to learn, let's say, AC/DC songs or
Right.
what have you, I'm always telling them, those guys, what you heard on that album is just a snippet. It's a one-time thing. They played it that one way, that one time, and they released it.
Right.
And the spirit of that music was, a lot of it was the edge of danger. Like
Right.
they might not land something.
Mhm.
And so when you embody the spirit of it and take some of the some of the licks, some of the ideas, but you make them your own, it actually is a lot more, I think, fulfilling. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, we're not going to sound like those people.
Right.
If we try to, we're going to miss something. See, all those voices that are very identifiable in drums and many other instruments, I think it comes from, they're an amalgamate of all the things that they were influenced by. But at some point, they found their own voice. Sometimes their own voice existed only within that band too.
Right. Right.
Like Bonham, for example, I think as much as I enjoy them, one of my least prone things to listen to are his drum solos, because
Yeah.
he grooves so hard with the band. It's like, I don't need to hear
Right.
all that wizardry all the time. But in that era, so many of those bands had one identifiable drum solo song.
Mhm.
He had Moby Dick, Ginger Baker had Toad, and it just goes on. And it was
Right.
kind of like their moment to express themselves, but they were such good band members.
Right.
So I think that's pretty cool. And if you don't believe me that people probably took a long time to even find their own voice and become who they are, I bet, and no one's told me that this is not true, I bet there's a room somewhere that at one point was full of Mona Lisas.
Oh.
That he was like, I bet
Yeah.
that there might be a Mona Lisa with like
Maybe.
the left eye was
Yeah.
perfect.
Like, I don't like that one so
But
much.
the
I like
rest
that
of
one
it
better.
didn't work.
Right.
He's like, you know what? Scrap
Right.
it.
Right. Right.
He's like, and that one, the left eye is fine, but the smile, he had to make a compromise. And if
Right.
it was today, you could just digitally put them together.
Right.
So
Exactly.
imagine, right? But no, he had
Exactly.
to do it a million times maybe to get it how he
Mhm.
wanted. So there's got to be a room full of Mona Lisa somewhere. I'd
There
like to
might
think.
be.
I'd
Hey,
like to think that
that's
people aren't born with that level of of talent, because talent is a general word for when someone's already done a lot of things to achieve a certain amount of facility.
Right.
Right. But the facility is only part of it. If you are a creator of things, there really is no way to like make someone create things.
Right.
But everybody kind of knows what that is. They do make up things. But yeah, a lot of times when we see someone at the finished product, they spent a lot of time chiseling away at the it's what I tell my students too, is we don't practice to get better. We practice to make hard stuff easy, because easy stuff fun.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
You know,
I mean, that's the way. Yeah, that's the way it rolls in. Like, this is a sports podcast, but that's the way it rolls in with sports too. You practice to make the hard stuff easy, and the easy stuff, smooth. You don't have to think about it. That's the same concept. Because if you don't practice, the hard stuff's going to be even harder than it was before, because you didn't practice it a million times to make it easier. I mean, that's the way it is in life in general. If you want to get better at anything, you got to work at it. That's what all this stuff is.
But isn't it funny how inspiring it can be?
Yeah.
Everybody gets behind a winning team or a winning player or whatever, because it's almost like we all can relate to, wow, if I just try a little harder, they make it look easy, or they make it look fun. I love so many different musicians that just have fun when they're playing.
Right.
Both because I think music, I mean, we call it playing, right? And so it should be fun. But there's also something very freeing about seeing someone just let loose and do what they do. And I think there's also something to be said for, like, if you enjoy what you're doing, people enjoy it with you. It's like laughter,
Yes.
And then it feeds itself. So while live performance, I hope is still on the rise,
Oh yeah, I love live music. That is still the best genre around, no matter what. Because I mean, my music is I'm country, rock and roll, rap. I like all of it. I'm a 90s, 80s kid, so we liked all of it then. That's just the way it was. It didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter where you came from or whatever. We liked all of it, and to this day I'm still like that. Now, since you're a drummer and a guitarist too, what are your top 5 drummers or top 5 guitarists, if you have a list? Because everybody's got a list, right?
Yeah, and my list varies, because the things that put them on the list vary in terms of my interest. So I don't like having a definitive list, because it's the same thing with food. I love certain foods, but I wouldn't eat them every day.
Right.
Because
what day it is.
It's kind of weight. Like, I'm not gonna have sushi every day because it's expensive. No, because it's also great, but it's a novelty.
Right.
And
exactly.
So as far as top, I usually go back to the first ones.
Okay.
Because those are like, I can't change the first ones. So my very first favorite drummer was Animal from the Muppets. It was when I was 7. My mom and dad got me like a little drum set, and I broke it, and they hit it. They hit it in the attic or something. And I forgot, because I didn't start really drumming till I was like 14.
Right.
But then my mom was like, do you remember that Muppet drum set you had, like the little animal guy?
Dude, I had the same thing. I had the same one.
Yeah, I was like, what happened to that? She goes, oh, you played it too hard. You broke it, so we hit it in the attic. I used to go up to the attic, and I'd be like, whose is that? Because I was like 6 or 7. So that's
and everything.
Yeah, and plus that calms the conversation every time.
Right.
Because people, sometimes they like to be divisive.
Yeah.
Oh, Neil Peart or Ringo, they're both awesome.
Right.
Completely differently, and I bet they both probably really inspired and also appreciated each other. And neither of them, I think, would have been replaceable in their bands.
No, they're unique to their band. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's I mean, what's harder to climb? A mountain or a bunch of hills. I mean, it's all relative. So I don't really have any favorites these days, except for, when sometimes I think about maybe somebody I've been listening to a lot lately, and I can't get enough of it. Like right now, my favorite drummer around is Matt Garska from this instrumental metal band called Animals as Leaders. And he's just a brilliant musician. His chops are incredible, but beyond the chops, he's just as grooving as they get. And his ability to have groove within these really complex, I mean, super high level compositions is pretty awesome. I just saw them play in New York, and I brought my son. It was the first time he saw a real concert, not one I was working at. And he had a blast. So he's like my favorite guy right now, and I think he's still going to keep getting better, which is scary because he's so incredible. And then as far as guitar, well, this is also a weird one. Maybe there's a drummer. His name is Elon Rubin, and he plays drums for Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, yeah. One of my I knew the name for some reason.
Yeah, like one of my dream gigs, like on my top. There again, like the first bands I ever wanted to play, and I still would, give my left foot to play in Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh God,
I actually met Billy Corgan once. He came to a monkey show in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
It's a whole long story, but the short end of it is I didn't know he was coming for sure. I was kind of nervous. When I finally realized he was coming, I must have tied my tie wrong like 20 times, and then I forgot about it. We played the gig, and after he came up on stage, and I didn't recognize him because he was smiling like ear to ear. He's not a guy I used to smile on.
Right.
He's draped in like this. He's wearing his hoodie like a cloak, and he just kind of comes up and he beelines right at me. And he comes right at me and he just said, "It was a great show. You're the happiest drummer I've ever seen play."
Awesome.
And I was like, "Oh, well, thanks. That's really cool." And I told him his is the only band I ever sent an audition tape to twice, because I did it when I was 15, and then I did it again when they were looking for a drummer like 20 years later.
Right.
And he was like, "I'm sorry I didn't see your video." And I will, all right, because at the time he had a drummer who was like 16 or 17 or something, like young guy he found. I said, "No, it's inspiring that you gave somebody a shot, and that's why I'm here, because JV Jones gave me a shot like that."
Exactly.
So anyway, that's so I would still love to play in Smashing Pumpkins, Jane's Addiction, they're just these amazing bands that I love their music, and I could play them like I know all the songs already.
and you can provide all the guitars and all the drum sets.
Yes. And so my hero here is besides Dave Grohl for the two things is Elon Rubin, because Elon got the Nine Inch Nails gig when he was like 20.
Yeah.
Incredible drummer. Like and his favorite guy you can tell is definitely Bonham. He can do that Bonham thing really well.
That's one of the reasons I think I like Nine Inch Nails because of that.
Yeah. But he can also do the Jimmy Page thing in his own way. He has his own band called the New Regime where he records all the stuff. But that's just, he's another one that I thought, well, he's just as good on both instruments because he spent enough time doing it.
Right.
I think at heart he's probably a drummer too, but he also learned classical piano. So he's just incredible, and he's one of my favorite guys. I would listen to him, tuning a snare drum, because I just think he's just so like talented, and also like he has his own sound, and he's just one of those guys that's really a songwriter at heart. Like he writes his own stuff. So that's something I'm not really good at. I don't really write song. I try,
dude. I couldn't even begin to write a song. I can it's silly though, because it just depends. I guess I could. I can write a sports story or something. I can pick that out, and I can write. Okay, this happened. Then
write about what you know.
Yeah, give your thoughts into it, all that stuff. I could do that, but putting
and I'm sure you get better. Yeah, people get better by doing it. There are tricks and things. It's.
To me, I think you'd have to come with the melody first, right? And then the words.
That's funny you ask, because I've seen it every which way. I mean, the more I've been playing more instruments, the more I play with people, the more I'm always part of you have an idea, you planted a seed, now let me start watering it with all these other things.
Right.
Because that's where my mind will go, as an accompanist kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. Somebody has a chord, I now have a picture in my head of what might go with that.
Right.
But I've seen every which way. People they come up with a lyric, they come up with a riff first, they come up with the melody. Sometimes it's none of those things is the starting point. It's just like a mixture of them until they kind of weed away what doesn't work. And sometimes it's collaborative. One person comes up with a lyric and the other person comes up with a melody.
Right. Exactly.
Like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're a wonderful band to see that they can still write together. They did an amazing performance recently on Howard Stern where they played Too Old to Give It Away and Under the Bridge, and they played them great. Which I really didn't expect the millionth time I've heard them to enjoy it, but they were so good. And then they talked about their writing process, and they played one of their new songs, and it's because Frusciante's back, and he's just magic.
That's the thing. There's certain people you just click with, and that's the way they are when all of them are together. They just click. Yeah. And when they're not together, because they had the guitarist from was it Jane's Addiction was on one of the bands?
Yeah, Navarro was on one album. Yeah. Because I'm a big Jane's Addiction fan too.
Yes.
But Yeah,
But it wasn't the same though. It was good. It was
No.
good, but it wasn't the same for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, the magic is there. And Chad Smith, there's another one. Man, I love Chad Smith.
Right.
He was the first clinic I went to. I have a signed drum head, you know, and it's still like, man, that guy can just, if you haven't listened to it and you're a fan of theirs, I would say check out the newest song. These Are the Ways, I think it's called.
Okay.
And it's very Who-ish. There's like some really freak out drum parts, but it's like, how's a 60-year-old guy getting away with this on a radio tune? But it's because he's Chad Smith.
Yeah.
He's ageless.
Right.
Like the guy is just awesome.
Yeah.
And he's got a good humor. I mean, come on, that whole Will Ferrell thing.
Yes, that is awesome.
That was awesome. That was so awesome. So, yeah.
Well, for people who don't know what we're talking about, explain. I mean, I remember it, but I don't completely remember it. But
there was a growing like belief that Will Ferrell and Chad Smith look very much alike, and arguably they do when they're dressed alike. They are pretty, you know, they have a lot of the same facial features and things. And but the irony was that, you know, I think Chad, being a famous rock musician, was now getting recognized more often for people thinking he was Will Ferrell because he's a great comedian. And then as it, you know, as Will Ferrell's, you know, characters have grown and grown, that one skit with the cowbell has become infamous. And so they finally decided to have a drum off on Jimmy Fallon or something. And it was great. I mean, and then the Chili Peppers played. It was really cool. But they had like this hysterical drum off where they were basically both pretending to be Chad Smith, which made sense because Chad, unlike Will, is not an actor. So he just did himself. And on his own, he's a very funny dude. Yeah. Much like the Monkees, actually. The guys in the Monkees are all funny.
Are they?
And the guys in the Chili Peppers are all funny. I think there's a thing there. But then Will Ferrell basically said, "No, I'm Chad Smith." Oh man, it's good. It's really good. Jimmy Fallon's band too is wow. The Roots are awesome.
Oh yeah, the Roots.
So refreshing to hear a late night band that can do hip hop.
They're legit. They're legit. Not, I mean, not that late night bands are legit, but these guys are legit. They have albums.
All of them are amazing. There's been so many great bands that could do so many things, but it felt like a more modern take on it, you know?
Yeah, and there are a variety of musicians in that band. It's not just guitar player, drummer, saxophone, bass, vocal singer. You know, it's all, there's a whole bunch of people, different people in it, so you get a whole bunch of different sounds out of that music.
And that is also, you know, as a drummer, I'm so appreciative that Questlove's the musical director.
Yes.
And so he's
no choking on the show here.
All right, choking on him. Be surprised. He's one of those guys that's more than just the guy who's hitting stuff. You know, he's a musical director because he understands the music, he understands the band, and drummers make great band leaders when they really are engaged with everybody. You know, it's like they're almost like the best guy to make the score, even though they're technically the quarterback. They're not the one who's probably going to actually run over the line.
Right.
But they have to see the field and know who to pass the ball to. And I have no idea about sports. So I hope that made sense.
That made complete sense.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of where so many of the greatest bands have great drummers in them, because the drummer knows how to just steer things, you know?
Right.
And then
exactly.
Just to, I don't know, maybe bring it back to how we've kind of met was, you know, through Tim.
Yep, Tim.
And Tim, some Jason. I was doing a clinic tour in Ohio, a wonderful state for drum shops. Unbelievable.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 major cities, and they all have a 5-star drum shop. It's pretty cool. I was doing this clinic tour, and one of them brought me to this one store that was in a mall.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm just setting up and bashing away. And Jason hears it from like across the mall or something, and comes in, and he sat down and played, and we got to know each other. I'd seen him on tour a few times since. And Tim, you know, he's great, and their family is really cool. And they saw us on the Monkey tour, I think.
Right.
And a lot of the music that we were doing was very traditional. You know, we were doing it like the record. Right. But it's just funny how many people you can meet out there playing music, seeing the impact that it has. So sometimes when I might be having like a rougher day, maybe like the sound check didn't get to happen, or the meal wasn't so happening, or whatever. Is when I get on the stage, I remember not only am I really lucky to be playing music, but I'm more fortunate that people are there to share it, because that might be the one show they see all year.
Right.
And they're not, and I don't ever give excuses. You know, I don't like when people say technical difficulties or anything like that. Don't try to bring anyone else's. I don't think it's worthwhile to bring anyone's bummer off the stage onto other people.
Right.
You know, because it's a show, right? So it must go on. So
Right.
present the best you can. And if something's bugging you, you got to deal with it. If you have a good poker face, most people don't even notice something's wrong.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so if you start grimacing, oh, my pedal's not working, doesn't matter, man. Just play. And then you know, the more you get to know your instrument or your band or the places you play, the easier you can just deal with the things that happen. There's a fumble. So there's a fumble. So you pick it up, you keep going.
Right.
And that's, I think, the things that people remember when they go to see a show. They go to see a show and they go, man, those guys were awesome. They were having so much fun.
Yep.
They came out sweating already, like Metallica. Metallica's a 3-hour show, but they played for like 2 hours before it. That's why they have so much stamina. They're like boxers. They come out already sweating.
Right.
So that's an amazing, you know, and as bands are getting older, I feel more and more inspired to not see like a peak yet.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like, I mean, some bands are right to maybe retire when they're on top, like Slayer.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Slayer is awesome, and they, you know, did what they were going to do. I just saw Testament last week with Exodus, and they sounded amazing. And Testament had Dave Lombardo.
Okay.
Dave Lombardo's a machine. He's and he and the guys in the Chili Peppers and you know, a little bit younger with the Foo Fighters, like all these guys for me are redefining what a musician looks like at that age.
Right.
You know, and
well, and you still have Kiss on tour. They're gonna be doing
they were smart. They were
years.
smart way early ago. You know how we're always going to look the same,
right? Yeah, they do.
they had a really good move with the makeup. But yeah, if you watch the Chili Peppers, minus Frusciante because he's I think 10 years younger, that's a group of 60-year-old men with their shirts off, hitting as hard as they possibly can. And that is admirable. And when I see that, I go, "Oh, okay, all right. I don't have to give up just yet. I got a little while.
Okay, I'm good. Let's go, boys."
Yeah, I have no excuse, everybody. And yeah, I feel very fortunate. They've gotten to be out playing with a lot of different bands in different places. And sometimes it still blows my mind. You know, like I remember I think we flew like 2 or 3 planes through like a couple of different cities in Europe once, and to get out, and then it's like all the vehicles were getting smaller. It went from an airplane down to like a bus, down to like a minivan, then finally into like a sedan somewhere in like the Alps or something with Papa Chubby. And we're driving, and you know, a lot of people could have been like, "Man, I am fried. I can't believe all this. This is such a long day." And I just remember thinking, okay, there's no smaller vehicle after this. But I feel like I've gone through like one of those books I read to my kids with like different, you know, a plane and a train and an automobile. And I was like, and now I get to do what? I get to hit things.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. And and some days I was like, man, somebody paid for this?
I know.
They didn't have a drummer over there. But the truth is, back to chemistry, like you said, sometimes when you're in someone's band, you're not there just because of how well you play the songs.
Right.
It's how well you get along, because you're hiring someone to keep a consistency in their environment. Let's say that, because some bands thrive on chaos and some bands thrive on organization. But if you're the person for that gig, it's because you continue whatever they're used to, you know. And also, you know, as a good friend of mine, Pete Thorne, who I interviewed a little while back, he's a guitar player he played for Chris Cornell and Melissa Etheridge, and he's amazing. And we both kind of came to the same thing about what you should be when you're a side musician, when you're joining a band who's already been around, and you know, you want to be a problem solved. Right. Because 9 times out of 10, if they call him or they call me or they call whoever, it wasn't because they were just looking around for somebody. It's because they probably had someone there that had to leave for some reason. Right. So now they have to get somebody who has a certain resume, because those resumes don't mean you can play. That's almost like a given. It's that they know you can hang, you know, like if I get a gig with, you know, if Grohl calls tomorrow and says, "Hey man," but I have a theory, by the way, about what's going to happen with that band. Okay. If he calls tomorrow and goes, "Hey man, can you be on a plane tomorrow? Make it over here. We're going to do a sound check thing and go. We'll email you the set list." I'll go, "Yeah." and then I'm going to put down whatever I'm doing, and I'm going to write down all the notes, and I'm
Right.
going to call the airline, and I'm going to make it happen
Right.
because I've had to do that. That's how I got the Dave Cassidy gig.
Okay.
Strange. I was going to sub because there was a snowstorm and they were playing in Jersey, and the drummer wasn't going to make it. So I learned the show that night with my kids and like their cribs and stuff. Then I drove through a snowstorm down to the Atlantic City. I did the sound check, and then she actually made it. Terry, fortunately made it from California for the show. But then she said, she's got too much stuff going on. So they said, well, you want the gig? And I knew them from touring with Davey because, again, the Frank, the musical director, was like, hey, man, you were the only person who was earlier to the call to the airport than me. So they remember stuff like that.
Right,
so they remember the stuff. But I forget where I was starting with that. But anyway, there's been so many times where if someone calls you up and says, hey, there's this gig, can you come in? It's kind of like sports. I'm sure if they said, hey, we need a relief pitcher,
right?
And a guy's been doing it consistently, then they're just gonna. That's how that drafting stuff works. Based on, so every little thing you do kind of counts towards, what you're gonna do later.
Exactly.
Anyway,
you're putting chips in. Your chips keep stacking.
Yeah. So I have a theory.
Okay, let me hear this.
Part one has already happened.
Okay.
I had a theory. As soon as Taylor passed away, I knew that the Foo Fighters were going to be honorable about it and not just get anybody and start playing. Right. But that was going to create a vortex, a vacuum, if you will, of huge rock bands.
Right.
So who better? Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right.
They're back. They got a new album. Sure enough, they already took over some of the Lollapalooza dates or something. Okay. So that's good. That's good. Right. But now, what are they going to do? Well, it's simple. Grohl's not going to get a new drummer because no one can fill that seat.
Right.
Except Grohl.
So what
Grohl's going to do is he's going to play the show, half the show at least, on the drums.
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome.
And then they're going to have different famous drummers sit in so he plays guitar. That's what will happen. And it will be awesome.
You're not kidding. That would be awesome.
Because one, Grohl can.
Yeah.
Two, no one else has ever done it. And Grohl loves to be the first cat to do stuff. Right. I mean, he's been on fire the last 10 years. Oh, we're the first band to record one song on every city. We're the first band to do our own horror movie. We're the first band to, so it's like he is one of my idol musicians because he just never wants to be bored. He's always trying new stuff and having fun with it, but he's very aware of what his capability is. He'll be the first to read.
His capability is pretty big. I'll give him credit for that.
Right.
He's pretty talented.
Right. I mean, very talented dude. And it's a funny thing too. He was my first major living influence.
Right.
And I learned all the Nirvana stuff. And then when the Foo Fighters stuff, I started learning guitar. And it took, I'm going to say, a good 15, almost 20 years till all of a sudden I went, oh, wow. All that stuff I learned, that vocabulary, is become my own version of it in vocabulary. And same thing with guitar. So if I got the call tomorrow to play guitar, I could do it. Right. So I'm not pitching any kind of crazy thing, maybe telling the universe, but if they wanted somebody who could play both and he could switch back and forth, I'd be that guy. I'm one of probably thousands who play way better than I can. But if it had to be tomorrow and they were around the corner, hey man, can you play Everlong on drums and then on guitar? Yeah, because I don't know how to do anything else. I can't change my oil. I don't know what to do, but I can do that.
You found something you're good at. You're sticking with it
because the 14-year-old in me is still like, man, I love playing music, and that's what the music is that inspired me to keep playing. And all the great things in my life have come from music. From meeting Davey at my old drum school, and he let me sit in, to becoming the sub and then his drummer, to just that springboarding to all these other bands. I got the Papa Chubby gig and the Reagan Youth gig in a strange way, but through Facebook, through people I knew. Okay. Because as soon as Davey Jones passed away, I knew I needed work. Right. So I just made it, just like I tell my friends who are, I'm unemployed. No, you're between jobs. But your job is to find the new one. So
right. That's the job. Exactly.
Yeah.
Your job is to find the job.
Yeah. You used to work 8 hours, 10 hours a day. That's how long you have to work every day to find a job. Because if you don't, somebody else who is going to get that job. And so I think there's plenty of work for everybody. The world is full of things to do and things that people need to get done.
Right.
So if you're somebody that, like myself, that's fortunate enough to live by the city, and I've always had supportive family, and then I'm also just kind of obsessive. Like I'm going to practice more than anybody else I know.
Right.
Because if you just give 10% more than the best guy in the room, your chances of getting the gig are a lot stronger. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be, just give a little extra. And everyone's capable of it. Here's an example I learned once in marching band camp.
Okay.
You do it with me? All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sit in your chair, put your fingers up as high as they can possibly go.
All right.
Go for it. And now go higher. See? I said to go as high as you can go, and then you went higher.
Yep.
Because we all think we leave.
I touched the ceiling.
And the reason why it happens that way, it always works, is because we stretch as we go up.
Right.
And then once we've reached the top, we are able to reach a little higher.
Right.
Because it's not that much higher, but we've already done the legwork, so to speak, of getting up there.
Right.
It's kind of, I'm sure you live this yourself. That's the goal, is to always be getting better by just inches, little bits. But yeah.
That's what I try to do every day on this podcast. I'm doing something every day, and I thank Tim for being able to hook me up with guys like you, because it's a sports podcast. But he's like, would you want to do interview some drummers and some musicians? I'm like, sure, why not? I can do whatever I want. It's cool. And I think this stuff is interesting. I mean, you've been very, very interesting in talking to you today. I've learned some new stuff. So I really appreciate it. And I know you have to go get your kids. You give me 46 minutes, so I don't want to keep you from doing that. So Felipe, I appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got my contacts. Just let me know anytime. We can hang and rap. Maybe you can teach me a little bit about football.
Hey, I got you there, man.
What's happening? And what's your shirt? Bengal? Is that
Bengals? Yep.
That's football, right?
Yeah, that's football.
That's football. Okay, yeah. My wife is always like, dude, how don't you know anything about football? Because I only know about snare drums, man. Like,
hey, trust me. I don't know that much about snare drums, so you can teach me about that.
We'll just share. And what's Iceman? What's that? What's that?
Well, when I was in high school, I wanted to become a radio sports talk guy. So I went to school, and I got my broadcasting degree. This is back in 1994. I graduated.
No wonder you make this look so easy.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I got the radio broadcasting degree. I just never got the job, but I got an internship at it was called 100.9 The Wiz here, and Vanilla Ice was popular back then. They let me do a sports not even a blog, what do you call it? Sports update in the morning show. So they said, we can't call you Jeff. I'm like, why not? What's wrong with Jeff? They said, we'll call you Strawberry Ice because your face is red. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Call me whatever you want, as long as you put it on the radio. So
yeah.
So that's how I did that. And then when I decided to start this thing up like 3 years ago, I'm like, well, I'd call it Sports Strawberry Ice, because people are like, what the hell is Sports Strawberry Ice? I got to check that out. So
yeah,
I figured
I dig it, man.
Kind of stuck with it. Wow.
No, I like it. I like it. And it's a name shared by only a couple of other really cool, like the comic book Iceman is awesome.
Yep.
I actually thought Iceman from Top Gun was pretty badass.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
Maverick's coming out. I cannot wait to see the sequel.
I know.
Oh, dude.
People want to sometimes dump on like research things, but who's been doing the gigs consistently as an action star better than Cruise? Maybe Keanu, but I think Cruise hasn't beat for like how long he's been doing it.
He's been doing it since the freaking 80s, man. I mean, like since I was like, okay, Top Gun was in 86. I was 11, and I love that movie. I've been waiting 30 years for the sequel to come out. I cannot wait. And now we had an extra 2 years because of the pandemic, because it was supposed to come out I think in 20. That's coming out now. So
I love that. I love that some certain shows and things or movies are resurging now.
Yeah,
because they already have a built-in audience, but they're up against themselves. Right. And so some of these actors that are coming, like what's that? Cobra Kai.
Yes,
those guys look awesome.
I love that show.
That's a great show. Amazing.
Yeah,
and they've kept it up, and they've worked really hard, and it's like if the Chili Peppers come out with a new album, it's really good.
Right.
I don't want it to be the same as before. It's going to be different, but it's still them. So.
Well, Flip it. We can't help it. All the stuff we grew up with is cooler than everybody else's. I mean, that's just the way it is, man.
That is it. You said it, man. You said it. This generation, they're just catching up.
Exactly. All right, Felipe, I'll let you go get your kids. I appreciate you,
Cheers,
brother.
my friend.
Take it
All right,
easy.
be well.
You too.
Thanks, man. See you.